Alright guys, so take a look at this bike. This is actually the 2021 Livewire by Harley Davidson, a totally electric motorcycle, which is kind of wild. The other thing that's interesting about this is that you don't have a shift lever and you don't have a clutch. It's completely automatic, no shifting at all. And I heard these are pretty fast. All right, this is pretty wild. All right, so the first thing I noticed is look at how far back the pegs are, way back here. All right, so let me see, and the stance on this is really far forward, which is really wild. All right, so you actually turn it on here with the button, and then you just press start here. I feel a little bit of movement, but there's no sound. It's completely silent. Completely silent. Look at this. I give it a little gas. And all right, let me find the foot pegs. Let me see what the brakes are on this crazy bike. All right, let's see. Let me turn it around here. I'm gonna duck walk it because I'm not that confident on this thing. Wow. All right. All right, so we're gonna follow this guy from Harley Davidson here. No clutch lever. Wow. No sound. Ooh, this is smooth. This is weird. Oh my goodness, this is the weirdest motorcycle I've ever driven in my life. Oh, it's got the auto canceling blinkers. This is a trip. Oh, it's got some serious engine braking. You don't even have to brake. Serious engine braking. Wow. So, I can't believe this bike. This thing is the craziest thing I've ever seen. Alright, so let's see. My forward stance position is probably one of the sportiest positions that I've ever been in. I'm like really leaned far over on this bike. Quite a bit of pressure on my hands, I would say. But it's kind of interesting because if you're going slow, it's kind of noticeable that you feel a little bit of pressure on your hands. But when you're actually going on the highway, you actually get the wind resistance that kind of balances it. So a lot of times if you're driving on highways, it's good to have more of a forward position, especially in a bike like this where you don't really have a windscreen or any kind of wind deflection or anything like that. So this thing is wild. Let me see if I can get used to this bike. Oh my goodness, no sound, completely silent. You can hear a little bit of whining from the engine, almost sounds like a turbo or something like that. Kind of the weirdest thing that I've found right off is that the engine braking is so extreme that when I let off the throttle, it really slows me down, almost like I'm hitting full brakes. So you have to really, it's almost like a different kind of a throttle control because you almost have like the throttle and the brake at the same time in your throttle, which if you got used to it, it's kind of nice because you don't have to worry about brakes at all. Oh, let me see this bike here. It's kind of crazy. And as far as the suspension's pretty stiff on this thing. I'd say kind of like a cruiser bike where it's a little bit stiffer, but it feels pretty stable on the road. It's just really hard to get used to. Ooh, there's a lot of sand here. That kind of freaks me out. Oh man, I don't know. This bike is really wild. Let me tell you, this is unlike anything I have ever driven before. Oh, wow. I'd say this one takes quite a bit to get used to. Ooh, wow. Let me tell you, that throttle, that acceleration, that will take your breath away. Oh my goodness. It is super quick and almost too nimble. Let me tell you definitely need to get used to this bike because it's so flickable and nimble. It's unbelievable. That's pretty wild. So I found this guy with like the loudest bike in the world here in front of me. All right, I'm gonna go. That acceleration, it literally feels like you are on a roller coaster on this bike. This thing feels like a roller coaster instead of a motorcycle. Oh, this is pretty wild. There's just no sound, which makes it doesn't even seem like a motorcycle. All right, so for me, this little bit of a drive, I've noticed that I am leaning a little bit too forward. I don't know if I could do long term on this, leaning forward this much, because it kind of gets my hands, almost too much pressure on my hands. And kind of the weird thing about your throttle hand is if you let go too much, you get the engine brake. So it's almost like you can't take a break really from your throttle hand, which I almost wish there was just a little less engine braking. I don't know if you can adjust that, but look at this, we're going downhill, and if I let go of the throttle completely, it's literally almost like full brakes on this thing. It's almost like you almost never have to even touch the brakes on this bike. It's the brake and the throttle at the same time. This is really wild. This is like the craziest thing I've ever been riding in my life. Wow. You hear just a little bit of the whine from the engine. Look at that. I didn't even touch the brake. No brake at all. Zero brake. Look at this. Oh, I think the front end lifted up. Ooh, that's crazy. That is pretty crazy. All right, so pretty good on the highway. We're going 49. Not too bad. Of course, we're in full wind with no windshield, no wind deflection at all, which is pretty nice. The other thing that's kind of interesting is there's really no engine heat. So it's a pretty warm day today, and my legs are like right up against the sides of the motorcycle. Usually you'd feel a little bit of heat from the engine. This bike. It's kind of interesting on this little stretch of the road. I'd say it doesn't feel, we're going 56, I'd say it doesn't feel as stable as some bikes going 56, 58. It's fairly stable, but not as stable as some bikes that are really well planted on the ground. So I actually took the Harley Davidson Pan America for a ride, and that seemed super stable, going like 57. I actually took the Honda Rebel 1100. That was probably another one that was super stable. I'd say this is kind of, I don't know, it seems like almost too twitchy on the roads. I don't know if I just have to get used to it. It's super twitchy where you just move the handlebars a little bit and it just jumps left and right. It kind of wanders around a little bit maybe on the road. So I don't know if you'd want to go, serious highway on this. But it's so weird. It's completely silent. No vibration. Maybe just a little bit in the handle. Oh, I think that was the road because the road switched right there. I don't think there's any vibration at all in the handlebars. Not buzzy at all. I've actually seen some. Ooh! Yeah, that's a stiff suspension. That surprised me. Alright, so yeah, that's a pretty stiff suspension right there. Alright. Yeah, but that's pretty wild. So you don't brake at all on this thing, which is kind of wild. This is like completely different. I'm getting alert. Low charge. That's not a good sign. That's not a good sign. We'll see if I get stuck on the road on this test drive. And the bad thing about an electric bike, yeah, nobody can bring me any gas to get me going. You're basically gonna have to tow this somewhere. Or, I don't know if you can actually bring a generator. Hey, I got 3 miles left. I'm almost dead on my battery. 3 miles left. So as far as the mirrors on this thing, I think the mirrors are adequate. They're kind of hard to move on these mirrors, which is pretty wild. My Dyna's kind of the same thing. So we're just gonna go, because I got a low charge. He doesn't think we're actually heavy enough to trip the sensor in the road, which is pretty wild. I heard that, I don't know what they're doing over there with the equipment, but I thought that was my bike. I was like, what's going on with the bike? I got a bunch of rattling in the bike, which is kind of crazy. Alright guys, so that was pretty wild. I'd say kind of the pros on this is it's super fast, almost too nimble, which is kind of crazy. You don't even have to use the brakes. The brakes and the gas are pretty much in the same thing. And as far as turning everything off here, pretty simple. It's weird that you start it up. It doesn't really start up because you don't have an engine sound on this one, which is kind of crazy. I'd say the bad things on this one, it's a little bit unstable on the highway. I'd say anything above 55, and it seems like the suspension kind of really throws you around more than a lot of the other bikes that I've been on. Probably the other negative would be running out of juice, which we almost did. We had like 3 miles left, and then it just said low charge. I thought for sure we we're gonna get stranded on this thing, but that is a pretty awesome bike. So thanks for coming along, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.